Hi YouTube, it is StarTard8 here, and today I have for you a Yu-Gi-Oh video. So, in lieu of the new format, I have decided to give you guys a rundown of my opinions, what I think of the format, and also a deck list, an edited one, of course, for this format. So, if you want to skip said introduction, you can click on my deck, which is right here. You can click on my deck to skip ahead to the actual deck profile, or you can listen to me talk about my thoughts. So, Ring of Destruction is back, and I love the new errata. They made it so that you can only use it during the opponent's turn, and they also made it so that you can't kill your opponent with it. But other than that, Ring of Destruction is still the same Ring of Destruction, so I think it's a welcome change. I really, really like the card, and I think it'll work some wonders. Of course, it doesn't work in every deck, especially not in Cliffort because you need all the life points you can get. But of course, in other decks like Burning Abyss, Mermail, Shadal, Tellarknight, it's obviously a very good card. So I definitely like that card. The deck that I have for you today is Mermail, and I also considered running Sinister Serpent. However, I found that Sinister not only bricked, but it's also very inconsistent. So, of course, Sinister Serpent is not going to be in this deck. Also, I thought that the Serpent errata, was very, very interesting in the fact that in order to actually use Serpent, you have to have additional Serpents, essentially mandating you to run 3. And because of that, I really don't like Sinister Serpent, even though it's a water card, and even though it does benefit this deck a great, great much. So, this deck will not be running Sinister Serpent. However, Mermails did get a nice hit in the fact that we lost Tidal, which is one of the most important cards in the entire deck. So, without Tidal, I think Mermail are going to go back to running Aqua Spirit, maybe even running more of a Megalo and Lead Core. Definitely Mass Mermail is the best now. So, with that out of the way, let's get into the nitty gritty and get into what the deck actually looks like now. So, each month I will post one Yu-Gi-Oh video, maybe two, depending. So, next month, tell me what you guys want, and just check the description and leave your comments below and tell me what you guys think. So, let's start the profile. Mermails really, really haven't changed. The main monster core is essentially the same. Even without Tidal, Mermails still run the same old triple Lind. Lind at 3 is standard. 3 Lind, 3 Pike, 1 Turge. Turge is still good. Trust me. I already told you guys why Turge is good in a previous video. In my most liked video, I gave you guys some little tips and tricks that you could do with Turge, and that video has hit 5,000 views, so thank you guys very much for that. You can click on my extra deck here to go to that video. So, after Turge and Pike and Lind, you also have 3 Gund. Gund is even more important now than it was because you need to be able to get those 7s onto the field as soon as possible. Of course, it runs 3 Turge. 3 Turges. Abyss to use. It runs 3 Abyss to use, because to use searches all that stuff, and he's a 7. I run 1 Megalo. I still only run 1 Megalo because you don't really need to, and 2400 is a little low this format. That's why I run Abyss Lead, because Abyss Lead gives you some leeway, gives you a beat stick, and it also gives you a way to kind of get rid of those Necroz cards. It nets you some advantage against Necroz, it can net you some advantage against Satellar, and it can definitely give you leverage with that really high attack. Lead is also a little more consistent now than he was because of Mask Change 2, and I'll get into that later. Atlantean Dragoons is still a staple in Mermail. It always will be. 3 Atlantean Heavy Infantry, because even with Emptiness at 1, you still need a way to get around that card. You also need a way to get around big monsters, like Virgil, or other big cards like Delteros or Trever. 2 Marksman, because Everything is chainable, so I don't really like running 3. 2 Marksman, I think, would serve your purposes very, very nicely. 2 Undyne. So this is going to be... This deck is going to look really interesting because I run an Undyne core, but I also run an Aqua Spirit core. And that is actually... I find that to be very optimal just because you can Undyne Aqua Spirit Controller, and that's a very... Those 3 cards in tandem are very, very powerful. Plus, Undyne lets you get the Dragoons off, and that's going to be your biggest play right now. 2 Controller, of course, because Controller... 2 Undyne, 2 Controller is always standard. Archer. I do run Fishborg Archer. I still run it because you can make synchro plays in Gungnir, and Gungnir can get you a lot of advantage. He's also level 7, so without Tidal, Gungnir's pretty important. And, of course, 2 Aqua Spirit. So Aqua Spirit is an interesting choice for a number of reasons. For 1, it lets you make rank 4s really, really quickly. For 2, it lets you synchro really, really quickly. And for 3, it gives you discarding fodder and mask change fodder. So Aqua Spirit is definitely good. If you guys have any suggestions, leave them in the comments below. And that's the monster core, guys. It's very small. It's very large. The monster core is essentially about the same size, but it runs a different engine. Because without Tidal, we kind of have to rely on Undyne now and Aqua Spirit to get everything started. But to keep kickstarting that and to keep our momentum, we need Mask Change too. Mask Mermails are incredibly good. As I said before, I would get into why Abyss Lead is more consistent now, and that is this card. No longer is Abyss Lead so much a dead draw with Controller, because you can just normal Controller and then get Lead into the graveyard immediately and summon Dark Law. So Controller Lead Mask Change is never a bad opening, because you'll always get a first turn Dark Law. And because of Controller, you also run this card, Allure of Darkness, just because you need draw power, and Allure of Darkness is a pot of greed. Soul Charge, because Soul Charge is Soul Charge. It's very, very powerful, and it can swing the game pretty much instantly. 2 Mystical Spaces, because Mermails hate back row. And starting into traps, like I said, Ring of Destruction is pretty much a staple everywhere, but before that, 3 Abyss Sphere, because Abyss Sphere is very standard in Mermail. I would have a Ring of Destruction in this deck, but I don't have one. So Mirror Force also serves those purposes quite nicely. Mirror Force, just get rid of all their field and get that emptiness off the field if it's already there. You either force them to get rid of their emptiness by negating Mirror Force, or you just destroy their monsters and they lose emptiness anyway. That is unless you're playing against Yosenju. But in that case, you'll be banishing all their stuff anyway. Vanities and Solemn Warning. You need stuff to cover for the loss of emptiness, because emptiness is so good. You need other things to cover it, like Solemn Warning and Mirror Force or Ring of Destruction. So having emptiness support is very important, because emptiness has the potential to swing games if gotten early enough. So that's the main deck, guys. Very standard, very, 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 very nice. I find it to be very fast. It's less aggressive. It's more based on resource management, whether or not you can get that lead into the graveyard fast enough or get those 7s or get your combo started. So let's get into the side deck to help with that. The side deck is meant mostly... It still counters the same things. You have both Fiends, Majesty and Vanity. The dual Fiends are really good just because they can be tribute summoned as early as turn 1. If you can get to use and then one of these things, that pretty much swings the game into your favor as long as they don't have Raigeki. 2 Max C. I like Max C against Burning Abyss because it pretty much makes them only special once. They'll normal summon their Burning Abyss, and then you'll just Max C them, and they won't ever special summon it again. Dark Hole, to get rid of that releaser lock, to get rid of big monsters, and just to get a nice board wipe. If you have Abyss lined, you can go additional plus with Dark Hole, which is always fun. The 3rd Mystical Space, of course, back row and cliff forts are still a threat, so you need the third one. 3 Fairy Wind, just because this deck absolutely gets destroyed by Macrocosmos, Dimensional Fissure, Emptiness. This card is just so amazing. And because people are playing more and more Fiendish Chain, I find that Fairy Wind is a very nice out to that. Shadow Imprisoning for Burning Abyss. Anti-Spell Fragrance for Necros and Cliffort. Of course, Anti-Spell Fragrance is very good, especially for you because you don't necessarily need to play your mask changes, so this is a good card. And then 2 Light Imprisonings for what few Satellar Knights there are. Satellar Knights are actually growing in popularity, so I expect to see Light Imprisoning or even Shared Ride or Mistake coming in. So definitely consider those 2 cards. That's the side deck, and I find that it definitely does a good job in countering what other decks can do against Mermail. And now we're going to get into the side deck. Yeah, now we're getting into the extra deck. The extra deck is slightly altered for the mask version, but it's pretty much the same as the last extra deck I showed you guys for this last month. It's got Trite, it's got Shark, it's got Bahamut. Abyss Dweller is still really good just because it can stop Necros for a turn and Burning Abyss. Gaios, it stops Talar Knight and Yosenju. Exiton, Levier because you still banish with Aqua Spirit, so Levier is still good. Castel, Dracosac, Big Eye, Gungnir, as I said before, Gungnir's a very strong card, especially because he's a 7 water, so you can use him to make a lot of things. If he gets negated, then you can just make more things. And he's good for Aqua Spirit. He's very good as an Aqua Spirit target. Black Rose, Leo, because you can controller lead Leo. That's always fun. And then the 2 fusions that you use with this deck are Dark Law, of course, because you want to stop them from searching a lot, and he's pretty much a one-sided macro. So Dark Law, turn 1 is always amazing, like I said before. And Acid. Acid, Aqua Spirit, and Lead all are just... Acid is so easy to get out, especially with Mask Change. Aqua Spirit makes Acid, Lead makes Acid. You can even make Acid with Fishborg Archer, and that's also really fun. This thing stops a lot of things. Say they chain Emptiness, Acid. Say they chain Soul Drain, again, Acid. So Acid is very good. So that's Mermail's, guys. So let me show you a combo that you can do with this deck now that Lead is back. It's a very simple combo. It of course revolves around Abyss Lead, but it also revolves around Teus and Turge and Gund, excuse me. It revolves around Gund and Turge. So as long as you have these guys, and then if you have something like an Infantry in the grave, one good combo with this deck is always Turge, Gund, Lead. So the setup for this, you want to set it up with an Abyss Pike. And if you Pike search for Gund, so Pike into Gund, now you have your hand set up. If you have Lead in the graveyard, the next thing you can do is use an Abyss Sphere to summon Turge. So now you have Turge, Pike, Gund. That's your field. This is... Lead is in your grave, and Pike and Infantry is also in your grave. So with these in the grave and these in your hand, or on your field at least, you can do something really nasty. Gund is in your hand, as I was saying before. Excuse me. Pike into Gund, and then if you Abyss Sphere into Turge, excuse me, I can't talk tonight. Abyss Sphere into Abyss Turge, then you can pitch the Gund to not only get back Infantry, but also to get back Abyss Lead and get him onto your field. So now you have this in your hand, you have an Infantry to use, and now you have these 3 monsters on your field, and that's amazing, because then you can go for a 4, or you can Abyss Lead and tribute stuff off to discard cards from your opponent's hand, and that's always very, very strong. Or if you really, really want to get dirty, if you're far enough ahead to do this, like I said, you can always make Bahamut Shark and then make Abyss Trite with that, and then lead it off, and that's another really good combo because now you have a Bahamut and you have a Bahamut and then you have Abyss lead, and that's so good. That's always a really good combo, and if you can get that, especially against Clifford and Necroz, by all means do it because you have a 27 beater, which most of their stuff can't get over, or you could even exceed these to make Abyss Dweller to give lead an edge over towers. And that's also really important because lead will have 3200, which is bigger than towers. That's actually bigger than most monsters, so lead becomes a very dangerous card. So again, that's a very, very powerful combo against Necroz and Cliffort. And if you guys can do that, then I highly suggest going for that combo pretty much whenever it's safe to do so, and whenever it can net you an advantage, which it almost always will. So definitely consider that, guys. And that's this month's Yu-Gi-Oh video. Check out the playlist. Check out my other Yu-Gi-Oh videos. I also post trains and rail fanning if you guys are interested in that. And again, guys, I said that this is now a monthly thing, so stay tuned next month or possibly even later this month for another Yu-Gi-Oh video. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.